It's time to look at Nikon's double-digit F-series cameras, starting with Nikon FM2n. I hope you didn't miss our blockbuster series on the single-digit Nikon F series. They're in the must-see category, like Star Wars 4, 5, 6, to set the foundation for the rest of the Nikon series. This Nikon FM2n is an upgrade to Nikon FM and FM2 cameras, and the most popular model of this series. FM3A may be regarded as a further upgrade, but it had a limited production run, and there are relatively few of them around today. I'll mention the differences as we go. FM2n is a full metal, fully mechanical camera. It has a battery only for the light meter and the LED that shows up in the viewfinder. Without the battery, it'll still work at all shutter speeds. This camera was intended for advanced user or as a backup camera body for the professional using either Nikon F2 or F3.
Now Nikon has gone a step further with the incredible Nikon FM2. This masterpiece of modern technology lets you capture on film what was once impossible. Freeze action at a lightning-quick 1/4000th of a second. Sharper flash pictures. Use virtually any film you like with an ultra-wide ASA range. Interchange viewfinder screens quickly and easily, but the FM2's capabilities don't end there. With the industry's most comprehensive collection of photographic accessories, almost anything is possible with your FM2. Choose from an extensive variety of close-up equipment, focusing aids, electronic flash unit, motor drives, and over 60 super sharp Nikon lenses. The Nikon FM2, now at this remarkably low price.
The F3 in particular had an electronically controlled shutter, so FM cameras as a second fully mechanical camera body using the same lenses made a lot of sense. As such, it had to be just as reliable as the professional cameras, and by now it is well acknowledged that it was. This happens to be my grab-and-go camera. I don't want to worry about breaking anything or try hard to remember all the weird features of each unique camera model. This one is as generic as they come, combining almost all the successful and enduring features in one reliable and foolproof package. No more and no less. Almost perfect for its purpose. Nikon FM series of cameras came after F2 and replaced the line of Nikormat cameras. They followed the trend of smaller and lighter SLR cameras, which was championed by Olympus and Pentax. But it's not as small or as light as those, but smaller than Nikon's single-digit F series. Here's the grand camera timeline. Nikon FM is the contemporary of Nikormat FT3 and Minolta XG1 in 1977. Nikon FM2 replaced FM and was the contemporary of Canon New F1 in 1982. Nikon FM2n was the contemporary of Nikon FE2 and Olympus OM3 in 1983. FM2n and OM3 were very long-lived. FM2n for 19 years until 2001. The final camera of this series was FM3A, which was short-lived from 2001 to 2006 and was a contemporary of Nikon D1X and D1H and Canon EOS 1D. So it was directly competing with the digital cameras, by then evidently a losing fight. The special versions of Nikon FM2n were Nikon FM2T as in Titan, FM2 Year of the Dog, FM2 Dragon Millennium Year LE. The main differences between Nikon FM, FM2 and FM2n are shown in this chart here. Nikon FM cameras can use pre-AI, AI, AIS and even AF lenses as they have aperture dials. They cannot use the G-type lenses which don't have aperture rings. The advance lever is super smooth. In fact, in my experience, it may even be the smoothest in the Nikon range, even smoother than F3. It goes 30 degrees to the rest position, also called the standoff position, then 135 degrees to the full swing. The lever also acts as a mechanical lock for the shutter button when it's pressed against the body. This action also turns off the light meter and the LED inside the viewfinder. To shoot, you need to pull out the advance lever and keep it in the rest position. The shutter dial has all the speeds from B to full 1 second up to 1/4000th of a second, which is a great achievement for a fully mechanical system. This camera does not have long shutter speeds, Unlike F3, which had up to 8 full seconds, the shutter speeds as marked should be used. There are no in-betweens. If you want very precise light metering, snap to one of the shutter speeds and if necessary, put the aperture halfway between the stops. The flash sync for FM2n is at all speeds up to the maximum of 1/250th of a second marked in red. Nikon FM2 maximum shutter speed is 1/200th of a second and marked separately as X200. This is in addition to the normal 250th of a second, which does not provide a flash sync, so they should not be mistaken. The original version of this camera had a titanium or titanium vertically traveling focal plane shutter with a honeycomb pattern. Later models changed to a smooth aluminium or aluminum vertical shutter like this one. The successor to this camera, which was Nikon FM3A, had a hybrid mechanical electronic shutter. That means it was a hybrid between Nikon FM2 and FE2. It had all the mechanical shutter speeds, and at the same time it could use automatic electronically controlled shutter speeds. The ISO film speed setting is on the same dial as the shutter. You pull out the ring and rotate. The choices are from ISO 12 to ISO 6400. The camera has no DX coding, so choose the speed yourself. Self-timer. Set the self-timer and press the shutter release button. Reflex mirror will go up and the self-timer will start to operate. It will shoot after 10 seconds. If you want to cancel self-timer operation after the lever has been set, but before it starts, just move it back to the original position. Simple. So it's very convenient to use the self-timer as a replacement for cable release for maximum vibration control. Double exposure is possible and very simple. Take the first shot, then pull the multiple exposure lever next to the advanced lever. Then wind the film advance lever fully. Although the finger pulling the multiple exposure lever will slip off the lever, that's still okay. The multiple exposure operation will have activated correctly, even if it gives you a guilty feeling. Have a look at the film counter over here. It's on number 1. It's wound, I shoot. The next one, if I wind, goes to number 2. If I use double exposure, it stays on number 2. It indicates that the film frame is the same. The shutter has been charged, but the film has not moved. Do it again. It remains on 2 again. If I don't pull this lever, now it goes to 3. A very neat feature. Doesn't exist in some of the more advanced Nikon F cameras or even Canon F1. In those cameras, the numbers keep counting even as you do multiple exposure on the same frame. Quite a design defect. This one has solved that problem. At the bottom of the camera, we have the battery chamber, tripod socket, film rewind release button, motor winder mechanical connection, motor winder electronic connection. You can open the battery chamber with a coin. The batteries are in a cup which faces up this way. Should be careful not to drop them. There's 2 of those on this occasion. You can also get a single one. To put it back in, it might be better to keep the camera upright. Put it in, then fold it back. Make sure the batteries don't fall out. There are several choices of battery types. 1 3-volt lithium battery, or 2 1.55-volt silver oxide batteries, or 2 1.5-volt alkaline manganese batteries. Here are the choices today. To check the battery charge, pull this out, half press the shutter button, look inside. If 1 or 2 of the LED lights come on, the battery is good. If they don't, the batteries have to be changed, or you have to check to see if you put them in the right way. With the B setting, the light meter does not work, so you can't use it for battery test either. To activate the light meter, you pull out the advanced lever, then half press the shutter button. That gives you 30 seconds to adjust the light meter. Then it turns off to preserve battery. You half press again if that's not enough for you. It's still much better than the 16 seconds in Nikon F3, for example. The viewfinder shows light meter to the right, the direct aperture readout on the top, and shutter speed on the left. The direct aperture readout literally looks at the second aperture ring on the lens. The light metering for FM2n is center weighted at 60-40, similar to Nikon F4 and unlike F3, which was 80-20, and F2, which was 50-50. It means the meter will read the whole of the screen but has a bias towards the center. The exposure indicator in the viewfinder uses 3 LEDs which are visible in all lighting conditions. The task is to achieve the circle for perfect exposure. Circle and plus together mean up to 1 stop overexposure. 1 plus alone means more than 1 stop overexposure. Circle and minus together means up to 1 stop underexposure. Minus alone means more than 1 stop underexposure. In practice with a modern color film, circle or 1 stop overexposure will be fine. On top we have a hot shoe for flash connection. Unlike some of the Nikon F cameras, we don't need an accessory here to put the flash on. Just go straight on top here. The viewfinder is not removable. However, interestingly, the focusing screen, which is over there, is replaceable from inside. It uses a little tool which looks like tweezers, can be taken out and replaced. The standard focusing screen is type K and has a split image section in the middle surrounded by micro prism. The standard screen for FM2 was K2 and for FM3A it was K3. These are all physically compatible. However, K2 and K3 are brighter. If K2 and K3 are used in the earlier FM cameras, some exposure compensation will be required. Viewfinder covers approximately 93% of the image area. The view magnification is 0.x6 times with 50mm lens at infinity. Note that in Nikon cameras, only the single-digit F cameras show 100% of the field of view. The viewfinder has a flash-ready LED just on the outside at the top. Here's an optional accessory, the rubber eye cup. I really like it. Gets my eye very close, stops the stray light from coming in, and it can be folded back. At the back we have the memo holder, so you can put the end of the film box in here. Remember what film you put in. Here you see N. That's the only indication that this is Nikon FM2n, because the little n is here. This is a film plane indicator, so if you need to precisely measure the distance, you don't measure it to the front of the lens, you measure to this point. To load film, pull this lever back against the direction of that arrow, back, while you pull this knob up. The back opens. Test film roll. Find one of those slots and you put the edge of the film in and push it in as far as it goes. Wind until you get to see the other side of it. So that's secure. Pull this to the other side and pop it in. Wind a bit more till you get a nice film stretch over here on the sprockets. Close this. Pull this back. You might like to give it a bit of tension. Not too much. Otherwise the end of the film comes out. Now you have to do a few blank shots. You shoot until the counter gets to number 1. Again, it's logical. The first frame is number 1, not number 0, like some Canon cameras. For example, Canon F1. The start on Canon F1 is 0, but on Nikon is 1. More logical. Because the last shot being 36 is number 36. not number 35. To take the film out, press the rewind release button, pull at the crank, rotate until you feel the film coming out, a release of tension. That's sufficient. Rotate this, pull this out, and open the back. This lever here is a depth of field preview. You can pull it back. Reduces the aperture set to the smallest that you've selected. You can then check the depth of field. On this side, we have the lens release button. Press this and rotate the lens to the right. The opposite of what you might have guessed. Put it in. Match this index to that dot. Rotate to the left. This opposite direction rotation is inherited from Nikon S cameras, which are rangefinder cameras, originally based on Contax cameras from Carl Zeiss. They also had this opposite direction opening. Most other Japanese cameras open to the left, like opening a tap, and close to the right. Nikon is the opposite. This is a cap over the flash sync socket. It is a German standard PC, not computer PC. Prontor Compur from Carl Zeiss. This is the lens that came with this camera. Nikon 24mm wide-angle f2.8. It's a great wide-angle lens for landscape photography, architectural photography, street photography, which is almost all I do. It's an AI lens. How do we know? AI lenses have this additional ridge. Pre-AI lenses have a smooth ring over here. Not here, but here on the outside. This ridge is intended to move this little tab, this black tab here, to the left. It's spring-loaded. When it moves, it indicates to the camera body what the aperture selection is and what the maximum open aperture is. On this occasion, 2.8. The distance index is here, and this is the distance in meters and feet. To set it to 1 meter, 1 meter comes on this black dot. But if you use infrared film, your index moves to this red dot. So 1 has to be set against this red dot, not this black dot. Now how are you going to do that? Your eyes don't see infrared. So how do you know at this point it's 1 meter unless you actually measure the distance? Okay, what you do is you look through the viewfinder the normal way and you set it until you see the scale. The scale says 1 meter. So that's in sharp focus with normal light. What you then do is to move the 1 across until it matches the red dot. So even though from inside it is not in focus, for infrared it is. That's how infrared index works. Note that in these early Nikon cameras, the aperture settings are color-coded. For example, 16 is blue. You see that? 16 is blue. Then there's some colored lines in this ring as well. There's a blue here and a blue there. If you set the distance to say 1 meter, between this blue and this blue, it's in sharp focus. So approximately from 0.6 meters to somewhere close to infinity is exactly in focus. This thing over here, sometimes called rabbit ears, is not used in this camera at all. It's used in earlier cameras like Nikon F and F2. That's how lenses used to communicate the aperture scale to the viewfinder. But once AI lenses came out and the bodies were designed for AI, that's no longer used. That's only for backward compatibility with earlier cameras. This is an AFS Nikon lens made much later than this, 1735. It has automatic to manual switch. You have to put it on manual. For cameras such as Nikon F4 and later, you put this on the smallest aperture, the largest number, and lock it with this button over here. It doesn't move anymore. With this camera being fully manual, you need to be able to rotate this aperture ring. So you take this off the lock. Now it moves. And now we can mount this and use it. Just like a normal lens, focus ring released, aperture ring working, and the zoom working. Nikon FM2n is not too heavy, not too light. It's just right. You feel all the metal construction as soon as you pick it up. There's no comparison with plastic body cameras. The feeling of cold metal against the fingers is something else. The simplicity of the manual operation, assisted with the easiest of the light meters and full information in the viewfinder, makes you think, why do I need any more? It's like driving a sleek and efficient Lexus rather than a Ferrari or a Tesla. If you crave for something different, you can try Nikon F5, which is like a mean, big and powerful SUV. For anything else, Nikon FM2n is totally satisfying. When I need to grab a camera and run out, this is the one I take. No need to think about the weird and unusual stuff or be careful with this and that. It just works. I don't think many people have heard Nikon FM2n and CLA being mentioned in the same sentence. In short, after you choose your favorite Nikon F camera, know that, assisted by our Nikon F series, consider getting one of these as a second backup body. I bet you'll use it even more than the main camera. Is your finger twitching already? Don't hesitate. Go online and start looking. What do you think? That's the ultimate thing cool, going around with this black Nikon FM2n, half leather case, and branded strap. That's my idea of street photography.